Hi and welcome to this week's Big Picture. This is Kim Watson speaking on Monday the 1st of July. So the intention of this video, just to make clear, is to look at what's happening in the bigger scheme of things. It's not a tool for getting that instant and absolute trade off at a specific time. There you need to be using a combination of your setups and of course the triggers when they come. The principles behind this is looking at the big picture, what the big money is doing and how we can use that to our advantage, and looking at the trends of the markets, of course, which I'm going to be covering through this. What I'm starting off looking at then is what the banks are doing. What's happening with the banks at the moment in this section. We're really looking at what the banks are up to. So US for the US dollar, I'm looking at these individually, not as a pairings at this stage. We will look at the pairings when we come down to the far right hand side over here, and I'll scroll down and I'll show you some overall analysis. What we've got here though is the pound dollar. What we're looking at that as the pound dollar. We're not looking at that. We're looking at the dollar on its own. As I was saying, current interest rate 2.5%. Interest rates. It was suggested at the last meeting that interest rate cuts, but there were no dates. There's one priced in for July in I think it's 2 or 3 weeks' time, and that's probably going to be the first of the price action that we see, or the interest rate cuts we see. On the basis of that, asset money has started sliding out of the pound. I keep wanting to say the pound dollar, just the dollar. The asset money is sliding out of this at the moment, so it's coming off there. The positions have reduced, although hedge is increasing. There we often see this picture here, one coming down, the other one going up, so it's not unusual. Key factors to watch out for that will affect the central bank's decisions are in this section here. We're looking at the ISM manufacturing, which has been out and came out around about expectation there. We've got FOMC Williams speaking tomorrow. We've got the non-farms, ADP non-farms on Wednesday. Thursday, of course, we've got Independence Day, so it'll be closed, which could lead into quite a quiet week this week from that point of view. And the normal non-farms is due on the Friday there, but I'm sure there'll be quite a few people taking extended week holidays here, so or weekend holidays, long weekends. So this data at the end of the week may be quite quiet, so something to watch out for. In terms of technicals, what's been happening, if you look at the dollar index, weekly the trend has been up, but daily, more recently, we've seen a bit of a sell-off there. The Eurozone. The Eurozone is, for me, one of the most flawed currencies ever, which I keep on promising I will provide a document on why it's so flawed. But for now, sitting at 0% interest rate, we've got a week or 2 weeks I think before we get round to the central bank meeting, European Central Bank. There's lots to be done there, they suggest, or there may be lots to be done. They haven't got much in the way of tools to do it. At the moment though, the asset money is running into the euro. It's been battered, but there's been money running in. Hedge funds, well, they're going completely opposite way. No news out this week, which may make it a bit of a quieter one there. The pound, this has become the bottom of the pile, back of the class really. Interest rates still dependent on Brexit. There's no changes going to be made in the near term, but the money continues to be coming out of the pound. In fact, asset managers and hedge funds both reducing their positions or increasing their negative positions. Coming out this week, we've already seen manufacturing PMI that disappointed this morning. And we've got services coming out on Wednesday, with construction in between that. Now construction's lost its power, but it'll be interesting to see what it's doing there, but weak figures altogether. One of the stronger pairings, it's not a pairing at all on its own, one of the stronger currencies at the moment has been the yen. No changes going to be happening there in terms of interest rates. We've got no significant news this week, but what has changed, last week we saw the hedge funds go positive here, and buying net long positions, and now we're seeing the we've seen the asset funds or asset managers doing exactly the same. So it's confirming the more bullish trend may be, which technically, if you look at it against the US dollar, the US dollar yen, you're seeing this downward trend. I should say that we've got an absolute perfect setup on the euro, on the pound in that respect as well, in terms of everything's aligned for negativity, and here we've got the alignment for further downside potentially on the US dollar stroke yen. Okay, Aussie dollar. Cut expected this week. It's another 0.25%. 0.75 is already priced in over the next 12 months. I put that in a couple of weeks ago. Nothing's changed there. That cut is there. The focus is in jobs. We've got no jobs reports coming out this week, but when it does, or when they do, there'll be a lot of focus on that for sure. What's the big money doing? Running scared to a degree, although the short positions are starting to reduce. Maybe because technically we've been coming around some bottoms, and we may be just shaping up a little bit here, but we'll see. Questions still to be had. Another star pupil then is the Canadian dollar. It's last time there was no hawkish turn, but there's some good jobs figures, and we'll see on Friday whether we see a repeat of that when we get the employment data coming out. Again, we've gone positive on the asset managers. They're buying the Canadian dollar effectively in terms of futures at the moment, so that's gone as a positive shine there. And the hedge funds are reducing, so the money's getting a little better. And well, weekly, it's arguable if we're still in an upward trend on the weeklies there, but we're certainly in a downward trend. So that's again a bit like an aligned currency there. New Zealand dollar, well, it's more and more negativity coming in. As cut in May was the last time. Business confidence out later this evening. Technically, we've seen a decent rally, as we've seen with the Aussie. Both those currencies are seeing decent rallies, but there's not necessarily a lot of underpinning of those. The confidence may be of that buying, but it may be more just somewhere else to put your money as opposed to the US dollar, it seems. S&Ps, well, the S&Ps have been helped up there by Trump today, but they were already pushing up. I mean, this figure here, and in terms of the more bullishness, and this is a significant bullishness, a bullish figure here. In fact, at some point here we may be getting to that point where it may topple the other way. There's a couple of these that I'm looking at and I'm thinking, have we got, or will we do a sudden about turn? One of them is the pound. I think that could at some point do an about turn. You've got to be watching that carefully. It's all down at the moment. It's good whilst the news is down, and it may be until a new prime minister is found that happens, or it may just carry on in that route until some sort of deal's done with Europe. But whatever, at some point that will get squeezed so much that it will change, and we could see quite a bounce off of it. Although some of the data that's coming out there, that PMI figure came in quite a miss today, not really favouring it too much, but overall there's potential. Same here, with the New Zealand dollars, you get it squeezed so much, and with the S&Ps, it's a bit of a reverse. Is where you get a push and you pushes and pushes, and everyone gets bullish, and who else is left to get bullish? Well, it's not quite that at the moment, but you can see the hedges are starting to hedge their positions. The short positions or the hedging with the opposite side of the market there. Both the weekly and daily trends are up at the moment, so that's where we sit in just terms of the strength of the currencies when you're looking at cross trading them. I should have really looked at this morning a little bit clearer myself. The pound has fallen right down. I mean, it was sliding anyway. Oops, wrong pen. There we go. Let's get the right pen. It was sliding to the wrong side of things here. Got very negative sentiments, very negative. The change over 3 months, we've just been seeing selling, and we've seen some more poor figures coming through there. So at the moment, it's on that cusp of not being good at all. New Zealand dollar, Aussie dollar, only slightly better in some respects, and with their rallies they had, it'll be interesting to see if they roll. But when you're looking at some of these pairs, I should have, as I said, I looked at and shorted the dollar dollar yen, I've taken a small position in dollar yen this morning. It's more on a short intermediate time frame, but really looked at things, and I should have taken the pound yen. I'll show you why. Let's get rid of that pen, and you just click over here, and this is okay. We'll come to the euro in a minute, but why looking at these currencies in this way and finding the strength and whatever else. Here's the pound yen. Now it's been in a decent downward move there, but today, for example, let's just click back onto that prior chart there and give you a nice clean chart. I get moaned that I've got too much on my charts, but it's my map. So the pound yen this morning, it moved, it broke the trend line that was running up there at about 33, down around about 33, dropped right at about 50 pips there. It dropped from that level, as opposed to, and this is the thing, I'm picking the wrong pair possibly. I've trained the dollar yen, and well, we're sitting here and it's still stalling. I still like the potential for it. It triggered my trade, but it could be a long-winded affair there, but it's just how you can use these pairs, and as I said, the pound yen should have been the trade for this morning. Right, let's go out and look at the bigger picture on these. I'm going to just look at the weeklies and just look at the technicals. This is an interesting thing on the euro at the moment. Weekly wise, last week we run into that weekly 50. Technically, it's done a little bit here, a higher low that sort of popped in there, which is clearer, more visible on the daily chart with the higher lows. It did it initially and it pushed through and has repeated that sort of exercise, but it's now doing a lower high in this near term. I do wonder, is this the beginning of a bit of a rollover? You just need to catch my daily outlooks for further details on what I'm looking at there. I think this is pretty much confirmed. Maybe a bit more of a retracement for the euro at the moment regardless. Looking at the pound, well, it's looking pretty bearish. It's again, it put a spinning top on after that the previous week, which looks quite bullish. It sort of come back to those prior lows there. It never really managed to get out of a relatively tight range, and when you looked at the weekly, the dailies rather, there was a support area around this 26.66 area. It just wouldn't break last week, where it's gone straight through it this morning. There were a load of sell orders below that level, which it sort of triggered. Where to now? Well, it could just continue pushing in this way. Again, it's put another lower high in, so the big picture would suggest downside for both the euro and the pound at the moment as I'm looking at these. Dollar yen, I've just picked the wrong one again. Let's just come back here, go into my weekly first, and show you on the weekly here what I'm looking at. Dollar yen. So dollar yen is pushed up in this downward trend. Ignore that spike. It's broken. If you were putting trend lines across a few weeks ago, it's broken down. It's looking like it's got further potential to continue to the south side there. From a daily perspective, we just bring this in, and it's gapped up there, and yes, there's a gap maybe that will get filled. We see these take 2 or 3 days sometimes to get filled. Other times they just don't get filled. I mean, this one back up here didn't get filled to the downside. It is yet to be filled. This may be a complete change of things here. Why am I bullish on the yen? Well, the yen's got some half decent sort of stats and numbers there, and I'm just working on that basis to think, well, maybe it's got a chance to break down yet. Okay, Aussie dollar. Now this has had a decent had a decent sort of push up over the previous 2 weeks. It outperformed likes the pound, the euro in this movement, but it's run back into its weekly 21 there, stalled there at the moment. If you look at it on a daily, it's putting this big bearish engulfing in there. Of course, there's news and there's an expectation of a cut in interest rates, and perhaps we're seeing the reaction of that today. So maybe there'll be more selling on that news. We'll see, but it's priced pretty much in there. You know what they say. Buy on the rumour, sell on the news. Well, that's what may be almost happening, but a bit early here. Okay, that's the Aussie dollar. Canadian dollar, as I said, another potential has potential here with oil prices being held up. OPEC meeting today, tomorrow. It's been looking at the moment that the current cuts will be carried forward. Whether there'll be further cuts, we'll find out. But for now, it's broken. In a sense, we're certainly broken the trend line that was running up on those lows there on the weeklies. For now, it's put lower highs in on that basis, on a weekly basis, and when you come down towards the look at the dailies there, there's clearly lower highs there. Bit of a reversal at the moment, and it's just sort of bouncing at near-term previous lows here, just coming off that sort of area. But it may give opportunities to sell into any upward movements on the dailies, but my preference is to see further downside, of course. Now it could, and one thing to bear in mind with non-farms and the Thursday being Independence Day and being closed, we could see this just chopping a bit of a range here on the Canadian dollar. It often does that, particularly before its own jobs report comes out. New Zealand dollar. So New Zealand dollar on a weekly basis, then it's again just like the Aussie dollar, had a good solid push up. In this though, it broke through its 21, it's thrifty at 50, looks quite decent there. It's run into some horizontal resistance from some of these prior lows here. Maybe first test it of them properly. We could see this roll over some more. Fundamentally, it's relatively weak. We've got news out this week, which may also, I think, anything that brings the Aussie down may bring this New Zealand dollar down as well. So looking relatively weak. If you look at it on a daily basis, again a bearish engulfing candle likely to finish today. Targets in the short term in terms of selling from this may be down towards the daily 21 to 50, but again, I'd be watching that and watching for a proper trigger of that potential. But certainly looks like it. I mean, I'm quite surprised it's pushed up as much as it has, with the big money being quite so bearish on it. Okay, so that's a New Zealand dollar. I've already shown you the pound yen and how you can trade some of these strong pairs and weaker pairs using this grid here. Okay, finish off with the S&P E-minis here. So we've got a bit of a gap up. It may come and close that gap a little bit. That's obviously helped by the sort of a continuation of talks. While they were cut off, they're going to continue again between the US and China, and also some trade and tariffs dropped off, or stopped, delayed, which may help things for now. And at some spot, if there was a proper resolution, as I've said many a time recently, we could be seeing that 3,000 area hit. But for now, well, gap is still potential, I suppose. I would have steered clear of this, but it's not moving too much. Tightish old range. It might get down there for those that like to trade the gap, but it may be a little island reversal, as we were discussing in our trading room earlier. On that note of island reversals, we should fly out to some nice islands and get some sun soon. That's just about it for me. I wish you all a great week, and bye for now.